This is where it's kind of subjective. So they're doing all these things purely for the purpose of serving their wife and their family, just so they can provide for their family, and
Not
you know
necessarily.
Oh, Gigi, why do you think a man gets up in a cherry picker to fix a power line or trim weakened tree branches during a windstorm when it's 40 below zero? Why do you think a man puts on hip waders and stands in waist deep freezing water in February to repair a burst water main? Why do you think a man pops pills to stay awake behind the wheel of his semi so he can drive 16 hours straight and stay on schedule? The man whose leg was crushed in a mining accident, who now fills potholes and cuts grass for the town, who gets up every morning despite chronic, debilitating pain, and does physical labor for 8 hours outdoors every single day in whatever weather. And yes, this is someone I know personally. Why do you think he does that? Why? High powered lawyers, CEOs, politicians, inventors, maybe they're just in it for the glory. But interestingly enough, those are the men history remembers. Isn't it, Gigi? That guy who fell 400 feet to his death while constructing a cell phone tower, he's only remembered by his family and maybe some government bean counter who tabulates statistics. He wasn't doing it for the glory. He was doing it for his wife and kids, or for the wife and kids he hoped to have one day. How about the guy who had his hand crushed twice on an oil rig, but who still works that job in northern Alberta year round, 24 days in a row, 6 days off, earning insane amounts of money just so he can afford to keep his ex wife and 6 kids in relative luxury through his court ordered $8,000 per month child support and alimony payments? The ex wife he has, who has a PhD in psychology that he paid for, but who has never worked a day in her life. And yes, again, this is a real guy. What about him? Where in the history books are these men's stories being told? Somehow you think that these men are doing it for the glory or the power or their love of the job, right? They're not necessarily doing it for their families, voluntarily or otherwise. Well, if they aren't, then why are they doing it, Gigi? Why would any man choose to get up in that cherry picker in a 40 below windstorm if not for his family?
not necessarily, but a lot of them are, and they're working crazy hours to do it. Especially in a city like New York, you sort of have to have money to even get a girlfriend. And so, it's subjective. Like, I think not all men enjoy working. I think some women, plenty of women enjoy working, but not all women enjoy working either.
Yeah, and most women prioritize work differently. Most of them prioritize fulfillment over money. They work at jobs they love and take less money in return because they're doing what they love. Men are more likely to work at jobs that they hate and take more money in return for doing things that they hate.
Well, I feel like that's the point. Like, that's the point that the men activist movement is like missing. Is like feminists recognize that.
Feminists recognize that? Then why are they obsessed with equal outcomes in positions of power and status? I mean, sure, they're not really concerned about 99% of garbage collectors being male, but they sure do get head up about the underrepresentation of women in the C suite, don't they?
Feminists want equality for the sexes. One of the problems is that working or staying home with the children or whatever it is, part time working and part time staying home with children, is totally subjective.
Yes, yes, it is. And yet feminists see a disparity in the numbers and presume it's due to sexism against women in the workplace, not the subjective priorities of individuals. Literally, those numbers could indicate that women are able to do whatever the fuck they want, perhaps more able than men are. But somehow, those numbers still represent an injustice against women because reasons.
The problem is that these two boxes that men and women are put into, women being subjected to being the primary caregiver, not subjected to, but classified as the primary caregiver, the one who does the housework, the one who takes care of the children, and the man is boxed into being the provider, the person who provides all of the money and the support for the mom. So he's supposed to work, she's supposed to stay home. And even though we're getting a more progressive society, it's still very much the norm for that to be the case.
You know why that is, Gigi? Because overwhelmingly, it's what women want. Here's the thing, and I'm speaking from experience here. Not all of us women have careers. Most women, like most men, they don't have careers, they have jobs. That woman behind the counter at McDonald's or scrubbing other people's toilets, she isn't doing it because it's fulfilling. She's doing it because she has to. And most of those women would rather the men in their lives be in cherry pickers fixing power lines, being paid 4 times what they are, because then those men are able to support their women's decision to not scrub other people's toilets. Some 65% of working women in the US would rather work less than more, and the majority of those women would rather not work at all. Being a housewife is the new American dream for women, Gigi. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the first feminists, the suffragettes, were overwhelmingly upper class and upper middle class women whose husbands had enviable occupations like barrister or physician? Why do you think it took so long for feminism to take off among the working classes, where the vast majority of women wouldn't in a million years have traded places with their men? Why can't I be a barrister like my father, was the question of the day. It was never, why can't I work 14 hours a day underground and get black lung disease and die at 45 like my husband? And you know what's really appalling about people like you, Gigi? There are still men who do those kinds of jobs every fucking single day, rain or shine, to provide for wives who would rather not scrub other people's toilets. And I can almost guarantee you, the only time you even notice them, you, people like you, the only time you even notice them is when their work inconveniences you. When the shit that they're doing, to make your water run and your lights turn on when you want, just with a motion of your hand, when their work makes you late for lunch,